Your soulmate's son is alone, pleading for your help. Help him now. Open the door now. God says, my child, listen carefully. I know why your heart became still when you heard these words. You felt something move deep inside you. It was not an accident. It was not because of fear. It was because compassion lives inside you, and I created that compassion for moments exactly like this. There is a child connected to someone you deeply care about. That child has carried silent questions that few people have noticed. The door I am asking you to open is not only made of wood. It is also the door of kindness, forgiveness, and courage. Before you decide what this message means, stay with me. I have been working quietly where your eyes could not see. If these words speak to your heart, gently type Amen below and keep listening. My child, listen closely. There have been nights when that little boy looked out of a bedroom window while the rain softly touched the glass. The house became quiet. The lights stayed on longer than usual. He waited for footsteps that never came. He did not fully understand the struggles around him, but he understood loneliness. Children often notice silence more than adults realize. They notice empty chairs. They notice closed doors. They notice tears that someone quickly wipes away. His small heart has been carrying questions he has never spoken aloud, and I have heard every one of them. You who are listening, do not imagine a child asking for perfection. He is not asking for someone to erase every painful memory. He is hoping someone will simply care enough to stay. Sometimes the greatest answer to prayer begins with a gentle presence. Sometimes healing enters a home through a patient conversation. I have been preparing hearts before preparing circumstances, because lasting peace always begins inside people before it appears around them. My beloved child, the person you know as your soulmate has been carrying a quiet burden. They have worried about this young life more than they have admitted. Many nights they opened an old Bible, read only a few verses, and closed it again because tears blurred every word. They wondered if they had failed. They wondered if hope had already left their family. Yet every prayer they whispered reached me. I never turned away. I remained close, even when they believed heaven had become silent. You have asked me why certain paths became separated. The answer has never been punishment. Growth often happens where comfort cannot remain. I have been teaching both of you different lessons. I have been softening hearts that once reacted too quickly. I have been replacing fear with wisdom. I have been removing pride little by little. These changes cannot always be seen in one day, but they become clear over time. My timing is never rushed, because true restoration grows like morning light. My child, listen carefully. There is something you have not yet understood. The child has quietly noticed your kindness from a distance. Perhaps through words spoken about you. Perhaps through a simple memory. Perhaps through one unexpected moment that seemed small to everyone else. Yet children remember kindness in ways adults often forget. One gentle act can become a safe place inside a young heart for years. That memory has remained alive, even while many other things changed. The evening became colder than anyone expected. Wind moved softly through the trees outside the home. A hallway light remained on. The child stood near the front door with uncertain eyes. He wanted someone trustworthy to arrive. He wanted someone who would listen before speaking. He wanted someone who would bring peace instead of another argument. Even though he could not explain these feelings, I understood every emotion hidden behind his silence. My beloved child, never underestimate what love shaped by grace can do. Loud voices often leave deep wounds. Gentle words often begin healing. The world tells people to protect themselves first. I teach my children to love with wisdom and patience. Compassion is never weakness. It is strength under my direction. That is why I have continued preparing your heart. I knew there would come a moment when kindness would matter more than perfect answers. Your soulmate has wrestled with regret. They remember moments they wish they could change. They remember conversations that ended too quickly. They remember choosing fear instead of trust. Yet regret does not have the final word when someone brings their broken heart before me. I restore what people believe is beyond repair. I rebuild hope where disappointment once lived. I breathe peace into homes that seemed filled only with silence. My child, there is another truth. The child has been praying in a simple way. Not with long speeches. Not with perfect words. Only honest ones. Sometimes he folded his small hands before sleeping. Sometimes he simply whispered, "God, please help us." Those few words carried great faith. Heaven always hears sincere prayers, even when they are spoken quietly. Never believe that simple faith goes unnoticed. You may wonder why I brought this message to you today. I brought it because compassion grows stronger when it is invited to act. You are not being asked to carry every burden alone. You are being invited to become someone who reflects my peace. Pray instead of worrying. Trust my timing. I am already working where you cannot yet see. Even when doors appear closed, I know how to prepare hearts before opening them. My beloved child, as you continue listening, remember one simple number today, 777. Let it remind you that I have not forgotten the prayers spoken in secret. Do not chase signs. Chase me. Let every reminder point your heart back toward faith, not fear. When you stay close to me, peace becomes stronger than uncertainty. Hope becomes louder than doubt. There is something your soulmate has not found the courage to say. It is not because love disappeared. It is because guilt has often spoken louder than hope. They have wondered whether you would still care after everything that happened. They have wondered if reaching out would only reopen old pain. Yet I have been slowly replacing that fear with quiet courage. Every day their heart becomes softer. Every day they understand more clearly what truly matters. My child, listen closely. Soon you will understand why the image of an open door has remained in your heart throughout this message. It is connected to one conversation that has not happened yet. It is connected to one quiet decision that will influence more than 2 lives. It is connected to one child who still believes kindness can change everything. Before that moment arrives, keep praying with patience. And if this message reminds you of someone who desperately needs hope today, share it with them. Sometimes one act of encouragement becomes the beginning of healing for an entire family. I have not finished revealing what I have been preparing. The child's next words, and the reason he believes you are the one who can help, will make everything you have heard today even clearer. Stay with me, my child. There is more that your heart needs to understand before the door is finally opened. My child, listen carefully. Before that door opens, I want you to understand what has been happening inside the young heart I have been watching every single day. While adults carried heavy conversations behind closed walls, the child quietly collected small moments that no one else noticed. He remembered the sound of laughter that slowly disappeared. He remembered family photographs that stayed untouched on a shelf. He remembered promises that were made with love but delayed by pain. Yet through every confusing moment, I remained beside him. I never allowed his hope to disappear completely because I knew there would come a day when light would begin returning to that home. My beloved child, one evening the house became unusually still. The television was off. The hallway seemed darker than before. Your soulmate sat alone at the kitchen table with tired eyes, staring at an untouched cup of coffee that had already grown cold. They were not thinking about success. They were not thinking about money. Their heart was fixed on one question. God, is there still a way to bring peace back into this family? I heard those words before they were even whispered. I knew the answer long before they finished praying. The child slowly walked into the room. He looked at your soulmate for several quiet seconds. He wanted to ask something important, but fear held the words inside his heart. Children often stay silent because they worry their questions will create more sadness. Instead, he simply sat nearby without saying anything. That silent moment became more powerful than a long conversation. Love was still present, even though no one could find the right words. My child, never think silence always means distance. Sometimes silence is where healing quietly begins. I often work where voices become still. I soften hearts when people stop trying to win every argument. I plant hope where tears have watered the ground. Even when you cannot see my hands moving, I am preparing tomorrow with great care. Days passed gently. Morning sunlight entered through the windows. The child picked up an old family picture from a small table. He looked at every smiling face. Then he quietly touched one familiar face with his finger. In that simple moment he whispered, God, can you help us smile like this again? Heaven heard every word. His prayer did not need perfect language because honest faith always reaches me. My beloved child, your soulmate also remembered you more often than you realize. Not because they wanted to return to old mistakes, but because they remembered the peace you once carried into difficult moments. They remembered how your calm words could settle fear. They remembered your patient heart. Regret slowly became gratitude because they finally understood the gift they had once overlooked. I have been teaching them not only how to miss someone, but how to become someone worthy of rebuilding trust. My child, listen closely. The child has quietly carried one small hope that he has never shared with anyone. He believes there is one person who would listen before judging. One person who would bring comfort instead of confusion. He does not understand every detail of the past. He only recognizes kindness when he sees it. That is why the thought of you has remained inside his heart longer than anyone expected. I know you may wonder whether opening your heart again could lead to more disappointment. That concern is understandable. I do not ask my children to ignore wisdom. I ask them to let wisdom walk beside compassion. Forgiveness does not erase every wound overnight. Healing grows one faithful step at a time. Trust my timing. I am already arranging moments that neither you nor your soulmate could create alone. My beloved child, there was one afternoon when soft worship music played quietly from another room. The child stopped what he was doing and simply listened. Something inside him became peaceful for a moment. He did not understand why. That peace came from my presence. I often speak most clearly when hearts become quiet enough to notice me. Even children recognize my comfort before they can fully explain it. Your soulmate stood outside later that evening and looked toward the sky as the first stars appeared. They remembered prayers from years ago. They remembered dreams that seemed impossible now. Yet instead of giving up, they whispered, "Lord, if restoration is still possible, teach me how to walk toward it." That prayer marked the beginning of a new season inside their heart. Change always begins within before it becomes visible around you. My child, let me remind you of something important. You are not responsible for carrying everyone alone. You are responsible for remaining faithful to the love, grace, and wisdom I place inside your heart. Let me guide every step. Do not rush ahead because of emotion. Do not step back because of fear. Walk with me. My direction will always lead toward peace. As the days continued, the child quietly wrote a few simple words on a small piece of paper. The handwriting was uneven. Some letters were larger than others. But every word came from his heart. He folded the paper carefully and placed it inside an old book where he believed it would stay safe. No one else knew about it. Yet I knew exactly where it was hidden because I had seen every tear that inspired those words. My beloved child, there is something beautiful happening beneath the surface that you cannot yet see. Hearts are becoming softer. Pride is becoming weaker. Hope is becoming stronger. I have been removing fear little by little. I have been preparing conversations that will carry honesty instead of blame. I have been opening doors that once seemed permanently closed. My work is often quiet, but it is never absent. Remember this today. Keep your eyes on me rather than your worries. Continue praying with faith. Continue choosing kindness when it would be easier to become cold. Continue believing that I can restore what people believe is beyond repair. If this message brings hope to your heart, let someone else hear it as well because hope grows stronger when it is shared. My child, listen carefully. The folded note hidden inside that old book has not remained there by accident. The child wrote one heartfelt request on that page, and very soon you will discover why those few simple words are connected to the door I asked you to open from the very beginning. That moment is closer than you think. My child, listen carefully. The quiet note remained hidden inside the old book for several days. No one reached for it. No one knew it existed. Yet every time the child walked past that shelf, his eyes returned to the same place. Hope had become small, but it had not disappeared. He believed that one day someone with a gentle heart would finally understand why he wrote those simple words. Outside, the afternoon breeze moved through the trees. Inside the house, silence carried questions that were still waiting for honest answers. Your soulmate noticed the child becoming quieter than usual. They sat beside him without asking too many questions. Sometimes love begins by simply being present. The child slowly looked up and asked, "Do you think people can come back after they have been gone for a long time?" The question stayed in the room. It was not really about distance. It was about hope. Your soulmate did not answer immediately because their own heart was searching for the same truth. The evening slowly faded into night. A warm lamp filled the living room with soft light. Your soulmate opened the Bible resting on the table. Their eyes stopped on words about peace and patience. They whispered a quiet prayer. Not for an instant miracle. Not for an easy path. They prayed for wisdom to do what was right. That prayer brought calm where fear had been living for far too long. My beloved child, healing rarely arrives with loud announcements. It often enters through small decisions made with love. A gentle conversation. A sincere apology. A willingness to listen. These moments may seem ordinary, but they become the beginning of extraordinary change. Hearts open before doors do. That is why I have been preparing every person involved one step at a time. The child could not sleep that night. Moonlight rested across the floor near his bed. He quietly stood, walked to the bookshelf, and carefully removed the old book. His hands trembled just enough to reveal how important it was. He unfolded the note once more and read the same words he had written days earlier. Then he folded it again and closed his eyes, hoping someone would one day hear the prayer hidden inside those few lines. Your soulmate quietly watched from the hallway. They had never seen the note before. They chose not to interrupt. Instead, they realized the child had been carrying a burden much heavier than anyone understood. Regret filled their heart, but so did determination. They knew things could not remain the same. They knew love required action, not only good intentions. My child, never believe that I ignore quiet tears. I count every one. I know every prayer spoken in the dark. Even when answers seem delayed, I am still working. I prepare hearts before I prepare moments. I build trust before I restore relationships. My timing is careful because lasting peace cannot be rushed. The next morning arrived with gentle sunlight. Birds sang outside the window. The child walked slowly into the kitchen where breakfast had already been prepared. Everything looked ordinary, yet something inside him had changed. Hope had become a little stronger. He believed that perhaps today would be different. He could not explain why. Sometimes hope grows simply because my peace has quietly entered a heart. Your soulmate finally gathered enough courage to ask, "Is there something you have wanted to tell me?" The child looked down for a moment. Then he nodded. Instead of speaking, he walked back to the bookshelf and returned with the folded paper. He placed it gently into your soulmate's hands. No dramatic words were spoken. The room became completely still. Your soulmate unfolded the note slowly. The handwriting was uneven, but every letter carried deep sincerity. It did not ask for expensive gifts. It did not ask for impossible promises. It simply asked if the people he loved could stop hurting each other. Then, at the bottom of the page, he added one more sentence that brought tears to every eye. He wrote that if there was one person who could help everyone remember kindness again, he hoped that person would not be afraid to open the door when the time finally came. Those words remained in your soulmate's heart all day. They realized this was never about forcing the past to return. It was about choosing a better future. They understood that courage sometimes begins with one honest conversation and one open heart. They no longer wanted fear to guide their next step. If this message has brought hope into your heart today, share it with someone who may also need encouragement. Sometimes one act of kindness reaches farther than we ever imagine. My child, listen closely. The note has now been read, but one important truth still remains hidden. The child has not yet revealed why he believed you were the person who needed to hear those words. When that reason comes into the light, everything connected to the door will finally begin to make sense. My child, listen carefully. After the note was read, the room remained silent for several long moments. No one hurried to speak. No one wanted to interrupt what had quietly settled over every heart. Your soulmate carefully folded the paper again and held it close. The child watched with hopeful eyes, searching for an answer that could not be spoken too quickly. Some moments deserve silence because truth needs room to be felt before it is explained. Your soulmate gently knelt beside the child and asked, "Why did you believe this message was meant for them?" The child looked toward the front door before answering. His small hands rested together as though protecting something precious. Then he quietly said, "Because every time their name was mentioned, people became calmer. They listened instead of arguing. I thought maybe they could help us remember how to care again." His words were simple, yet they carried a wisdom far beyond his years. My beloved child, kindness often leaves footprints that remain long after people believe they have been forgotten. You may never realize how deeply one gentle conversation, one patient response, or one act of mercy can remain inside another person's heart. The child remembered those moments even when everyone else had moved on. What seemed ordinary to you became extraordinary to him. Outside, the afternoon sky slowly filled with soft clouds. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. The child walked toward the front window and quietly stood there. He was not waiting for perfection. He was waiting for hope. He believed that if hearts could change, homes could change too. That quiet faith became stronger with every passing day. Your soulmate looked again at the folded note. Regret was still present, but it no longer controlled every thought. Something new had begun growing inside them. It was courage. Not loud courage that demanded attention, but steady courage that chooses truth over fear. They realized they could no longer allow yesterday's mistakes to decide tomorrow's future. My child, remember this. Healing does not begin when every problem disappears. Healing begins when someone decides love is more important than pride. Forgiveness is not forgetting what happened. It is choosing not to let pain become the ruler of your heart. That choice opens doors which fear can never unlock. As evening arrived, your soulmate quietly sat near the window with an open Bible resting on their lap. The pages moved gently as the breeze entered the room. They prayed with honest words. Lord, show me how to rebuild what has been broken. Give me wisdom before you give me opportunities. That prayer brought peace instead of pressure. Sometimes my greatest answer is not immediate change around you, but lasting change within you. The child watched from across the room. For the first time in many days, he smiled without forcing it. It was a small smile, but it carried genuine hope. He believed something good was beginning. He could not explain why, yet his heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. Hope often arrives quietly before anyone recognizes it. My beloved child, I have been preparing every heart involved with great care. I have slowed certain moments so people could grow. I have delayed conversations until wisdom became stronger than emotion. What seemed like waiting was never wasted. Every season has been shaping compassion, patience, and understanding. Nothing placed into my hands is ever meaningless. The next morning, your soulmate carefully placed the folded note inside the Bible instead of hiding it away again. They wanted to remember those words every day. Not because they wished to remain in regret, but because they wanted to remain faithful to the new path opening before them. Every glance at that note reminded them that love is shown through actions, not only intentions. My child, perhaps you have wondered why the image of the open door has remained throughout this message. It has never been about a building alone. It has always represented a willing heart. Closed hearts create lonely homes. Open hearts create places where healing can begin. Before any reunion, before any conversation, before any new chapter, the heart must first become willing to receive peace. Later that afternoon, the child quietly walked to the front entrance. He rested his hand on the doorknob for a moment, then stepped back. He whispered a simple prayer that no one else heard. Lord, when the right time comes, help the right person walk through this door. His faith remained gentle. It carried no demands. Only trust. If these words have encouraged your heart, share this message with someone who may be praying for peace today. A small reminder of hope can become the answer to someone else's quiet prayer. My child, listen closely. The door has not opened yet, but the decision to open it has already begun inside every heart that matters. One final conversation is still waiting. One heartfelt choice has yet to be made. When that moment arrives, the child will reveal the one reason he never stopped believing you would answer when hope finally knocked at him. My child, listen carefully. The quiet prayer spoken beside the door did not disappear into the silence. Every sincere prayer reaches my heart. The child stood there for a few more moments, then slowly stepped away with peaceful eyes. He no longer felt completely alone. He believed that even if people needed time to change, I was already doing something they could not yet see. Hope had become stronger than fear, and that quiet hope began changing the atmosphere inside the home. Your soulmate noticed the difference almost immediately. The child laughed again while reading one of his favorite books. He smiled during breakfast. He even began humming a simple worship song that he had heard only a few days earlier. These small moments seemed ordinary to others, but your soulmate knew they were signs that healing had already begun inside a young heart. They quietly thanked me for reminding them that restoration often starts with the smallest victories. My beloved child, never overlook the value of gentle progress. The world celebrates sudden success. I often work through faithful steps. One kind word. One honest prayer. One forgiving heart. One peaceful decision. These simple choices become the foundation of lasting change. What grows slowly with my guidance becomes strong enough to remain through every season. Later that afternoon, your soulmate picked up the folded note once again. This time they did not read it alone. They invited the child to sit beside them. Together they smiled through quiet tears as every word was read again. No one felt embarrassed by those tears. They understood that healing sometimes arrives wrapped inside emotions people once tried to hide. The room no longer felt heavy. It felt filled with quiet peace. The child looked up and softly asked, "Do you think they would still care about us?" Your soulmate paused before answering. They wanted every word to be honest. Then they gently replied, "I cannot speak for anyone else's heart, but I believe kindness is never forgotten." That answer brought comfort because it was built on hope instead of promises no one could guarantee. My child, trust me with what you cannot control. There are questions that only time can answer. There are conversations that cannot be forced. I know the perfect moment for every step. Continue praying instead of worrying. Continue choosing peace instead of fear. I am already working where you cannot yet see. Hearts prepared by grace recognize the right moment when it finally arrives. As evening settled across the neighborhood, warm light shined through the windows of the home. The child quietly placed a chair near the front entrance. Your soulmate smiled and asked why. The child answered with innocent confidence. "I just want someone to feel welcome if they come." Those simple words touched every heart in the room. They were not about expecting something immediately. They reflected a heart that had learned to remain open instead of becoming bitter. Your soulmate realized that the child had become their unexpected teacher. While adults often carried regret, fear, and hesitation, the child carried simple faith. He believed people could change. He believed love could return. He believed kindness still mattered. Watching that faith reminded your soulmate of the prayers they had almost stopped praying. Their own heart became lighter because hope had quietly returned. My beloved child, this is how I often restore people. I do not always begin with dramatic moments. I begin by changing hearts. I remove anger little by little. I replace pride with humility. I replace fear with trust. Then, when the right time comes, people discover they have already become different before their circumstances begin changing around them. The next morning, sunlight filled every corner of the house. The child carefully straightened the small chair beside the entrance once more. He smiled without saying anything. Your soulmate looked toward the door, then quietly whispered another prayer. Lord, if this moment is truly in your hands, help every heart choose peace. That prayer carried no pressure. It carried surrender. And surrender always creates room for my peace. My child, perhaps you have noticed something important throughout this message. The greatest miracle has never been the opening of a physical door. It has been the opening of wounded hearts. Closed hearts keep people apart. Open hearts make forgiveness possible. Open hearts create space for compassion. Open hearts allow healing to enter places where pain once lived. The child then reached into his pocket and removed a second folded piece of paper. Your soulmate looked at it with surprise because they had never seen it before. The child smiled gently and said, "I wrote this one after I started believing things could get better." Hope had already inspired another message before anyone realized it. Inside that paper were only a few simple lines. They thanked God for listening. They thanked Him for giving courage to frightened hearts. They thanked Him for teaching them not to stop believing in kindness. At the bottom of the page was one final sentence that brought quiet tears to your soulmate's eyes. It simply said, "When the door opens, I hope everyone who walks through it brings peace." My beloved child, carry those words with you today. Let your own heart become a place where peace is welcomed. Let forgiveness grow stronger than old disappointments. Let compassion become greater than fear. If this message has encouraged you, let someone else hear it today. Sometimes the smallest act of sharing hope becomes the beginning of healing for another family. My child, listen closely. The door is now ready to open, but what waits on the other side is not what anyone expected. Before that moment is revealed, there is one final message your heart needs to hear, one that will bring together every prayer, every tear, every quiet act of faith, and every hopeful step that has led to this moment. My child, listen carefully. You have walked through every quiet moment of this message with an open heart. Now you can finally understand why I asked you to notice the child standing near the door. He was never asking you to carry every burden alone. He was hoping someone would choose compassion instead of fear. The greatest answer to his prayer was never a perfect family. It was the beginning of hearts willing to heal together. That is where restoration always begins. The child slowly walked to the front door one last time. He placed his small hand on the handle, looked toward your soulmate, and smiled with peaceful confidence. Your soulmate walked beside him. They took a deep breath. Together they opened the door. Fresh morning light poured into the home. A gentle breeze filled the hallway. Nothing magical happened in that instant. Instead, something even more beautiful happened. Fear no longer controlled the house. Hope was finally welcomed inside. My beloved child, remember this truth forever. Healing does not always arrive through dramatic moments. It often begins with one prayer, one conversation, one act of forgiveness, and one decision to trust me again. What seemed impossible yesterday becomes possible when hearts choose grace over pride. I have been working through every quiet moment, every tear, every unanswered question, and every faithful prayer. None of it has been wasted. Your soulmate looked at the child with grateful eyes and gently said, "Thank you for reminding me what really matters." The child smiled and simply replied, "I just wanted everyone to stop hurting." Those innocent words carried more wisdom than many long speeches. Love had found its way back into the home, not because every problem disappeared, but because everyone finally chose peace over fear. My child, if you are waiting for healing in your own life, do not lose hope. Keep praying instead of worrying. Keep loving instead of becoming bitter. Keep trusting my timing instead of rushing ahead. Even when you cannot see my hands at work, I am preparing tomorrow with perfect wisdom. I know every tear you have cried. I know every silent prayer you have whispered. I have never left your side. Carry peace wherever you go. Speak with kindness. Forgive when your heart is ready. Let your faith shine through your actions. The world has enough anger. Be someone who brings hope. Be someone who opens doors instead of closing them. Be someone who reminds others that grace is stronger than fear. If this message encouraged your heart today, share it with someone who needs hope. Your simple act of kindness may become the answer to someone else's quiet prayer. And before you leave, if this message spoke to your heart, type Amen. May the Lord bless you, guide you with wisdom, fill your heart with peace, and remind you every day that His love never leaves those who place their trust in Him.